Hello and welcome to Putting You on the Spot, the podcast that puts you in the spotlight. Today in the spotlight we have local Long Island band Teloch Vovin. Hopefully I pronounced that properly. So we have Grigori and Saturnus here in studio. What's up, guys?
Going on, dude?
So before we get started, introduce yourselves and where the people can find you.
My name's Grigori, guitar player for Teloch Vovin. And we're on Facebook and Instagram, and we're getting our YouTube page back up and running, so we'll have all that up soon. And then hopefully actually we'll have a website soon too. But,
all right.
Saturnus, bass player for Teloch Vovin, and basically everything he just said.
Yeah, luckily the YouTube stuff is pretty easy to get back up. Yeah. So it's maybe I should censor myself here. I'd rather not have to use it. It's nice to be able to have everything on like your own website and be able to host everything. But they just make things so easy over there. They've been building that infrastructure for years and years.
And everybody just goes to YouTube. So
yeah, exactly. It just makes things simple. So, all right, Teloch Vovin.
Yes.
All right. I don't know why I have such a hard time trying to get that, which I love the name. Where does the name come from?
The name is Enochian.
Okay.
All right. Teloch means death and Vovin means dragon.
Gotcha.
So.
All right. I noticed in a lot of your songs and with some of the imagery and stuff like that, and also off your name, you kind of go with a Saturnist kind of vibe?
Well, there's a lot behind the occult practice of the band. There's a lot that has to do with connections with Saturn and some of the planetary elements behind it.
All right.
So there's other aspects of stuff mixed in too, but it just fits.
Yeah, I noticed it a lot because I practice some stuff myself. I'm a modern day Wicca, I guess you could say. But I've researched a lot of other practices and stuff like that. And Saturnism gets like a bad name. I've heard like a lot of the conspiracy theory guys are all like, oh, it's all about demonic Satan and all that kind of stuff and bringing destruction to the world. I don't think that's really true though. But there's a light and a dark to either side.
For Teloch Vovin, it is.
I figured as much because you guys are a black metal band.
Orthodox black metal.
Orthodox. What's the difference?
Well, it's about theistic Satanism. It's about the actual practice of, a satanic practice where you're not just an archetype. I don't believe in Satan as a being that's going to come in and sit down on the couch next to me. But I do believe it's an entity, a force. There's a lot of facets to it, and Satan is only one aspect of the practice of the band, of the the occult practice of the band. But it's the wrathful, fiery, destructive aspect, and that's what Teloch Vovin is pursuing. The aspect that Teloch Vovin is writing about at this point.
Gotcha. Yeah, which makes sense and fits perfectly with the the style of music as well. It just kind of feeds into each other. From what I can remember, with the earliest days of black metal, that's kind of like how it came about, right? Wasn't it like almost a musical representation of like different forms of Satanism and stuff like that coming out of Sweden, Norway, and all that kind of stuff, and their connection to that and giving it a musical element?
Yeah, it depends because there were always a lot of those bands didn't really practice too. Some of them did. There's a large difference. There's some bands that pursue like an atheistic Satanism, which is retarded to me. It's call it something different. It's just. But then there are a lot of other bands who are actually putting the occult practice to music, and that's what I'm doing with Teloch Vovin.
Yeah, so. And you guys have a wild sound. You have everything. Like I've listened to a bunch of your songs. You have everything from like old school conventional style like black metal with the crazy speed riff picks and stuff like that. But then you also have a lot of electronic music. What's the creative inspiration or thought process that goes into that? Is that like to help bring a feel to it? Is it like almost like meditative in a way to help you connect to the other side?
There's an overarching concept with Teloch Vovin. There's 2 black metal albums, all right, that are being worked on, all right, that are connected, that when there's 2 of them are released, you can actually listen to them beginning to end. Cool. Where like the intro to the first album is the outro to the second, the outro to the first album is the intro to the second, where they'll actually connect as like one movie. And then there's a third one that I'm doing with the old drummer Prof, who's still a member of the band, but he doesn't play in the metal side of the band.
Okay.
We do these Psalms of Chaos. That's specifically electronic, like ritual black ambient tracks. There's going to be 11 tracks on each album. 11 is a number that has a spiritual connection to the band. So when you put the three of them together, it spells out the whole concept of Teloch Vovin.
Oh, that's awesome.
After we've done that, the band is going to be changing our name to Lux Pharaoh, which relates, Lux is light and Pharaoh means to fetch or to bring, and relates to Lucifer. So like where Teloch Vovin relates to Satan or the wrathful destructive principle, after you've destroyed, you need to create. So now out of Lux Pharaoh, it's going to be the creation out of what was destroyed. So, and in that aspect of the band, we'll start adding some, it'll still be heavy, it'll still be dark, stuff like that, but it'll have some other influences that wouldn't necessarily fit within Teloch Vovin. So
I love that. You guys have put a lot of thought into that. That's really cool.
Yeah. It's my life. It's something I've lived with, from the moment I wake up, and it's the spiritual practice is my life. So my music is a reflection of that.
Yeah, and you don't see people doing concept albums too much anymore. But this is so much more than just a concept album. It's you expressing your life, your spirituality, into a craft that you also love as well.
It's basically a ritual. My life is a ritual, and just trying to make every aspect of my life fit into that ritual aspect as as an offering, as also to channel that essence through myself into this world. So
yeah, that's beautiful. And I totally understand the whole from chaos to birth and stuff like that. In my practice, we work with all the different elements and all that stuff, and fire being a very important one. When working with fire, it can be very chaotic, very destructive, and you see it in nature. As a forest fire comes through and clears out all the brush, what comes from it is rebirth of something new. So you see in a lot of occult practices and stuff like that, a lot of similarities, but they all obviously come from very different places, worship different things and stuff like that. But at the base, you see a lot of similarities, and I think that's going back to ancient times when we were so much more connected to the natural energies of the universe. They had a better understanding of what was going on, and a lot of it was lost, unfortunately. But it's through the past, probably since the 70s, you started to see resurrection of some occult practices more in the mainstream, not underground so much anymore, and it's really started to blossom. And I remember the first time I heard of Satanism and whatnot, I was like, oh my God, that's that's so horrible, that's so evil. But I didn't have an understanding of it. And just like any other practice, there's multiple different forms of it and stuff like that. So how am I trying to word it here? What's your expression of Satanism, so to speak,
Well, my form of Satanism is not the worship of human evil. Human evil is usually small, simple-minded, and petty. This is more of a spiritual evil. But in all honesty, I look at what people consider as God, that which created the universe, is a tyrant. This universe is a prison. This flesh is our cell. So it's the idea of overcoming creation on a whole. If you study the Kabbalah, which a lot of the band is based upon, they have the concept of the Ain, which you could relate to the primordial chaos.
Okay.
That which was before. It's formless. It's boundless. It's the idea of undoing all of this creation and returning our spirit back to that limitless, boundless, beyond this world. And it's literally the idea of, I guess you could say, anti-cosmic, about undoing the cosmos and creation and undoing God's creation to free ourselves from, the tyranny of flesh, of form, of mortality.
Yeah, and to the unassuming and to those ignorant of what that means, they could think that's absolutely horrible. But how would I explain it? Is there's all these different theories out there these days, simulation and all that stuff. I listen to a lot of conspiracy stuff, and there's a lot that we've lost over the years, and as man has taken control of man, we've kind of been forced into forgetting that we are spiritual beings that belong to something so much more than this. This is just a step into something else, whether it's a spiritual simulation of the universe, creating material life in order to explore other things. At the same time, a lot of practices would say this is also kind of like a prison realm where we're,
it's like we've been put in a box and put in a closet.
Exactly. So, you know, wanting to reconnect to the primordial and to the energy that is everything, you know, I think that's that's a beautiful thing. And I think it's misunderstood by a lot of people, you know.
I mean, there is, darkness to it. I mean, it is a destructive thing. It's, but that's because that which we're encased in now needs to be destroyed. It's temporary. It doesn't have much lasting worth. It's not really true. It's just temporal.
Yeah.
And it's about, seeking to get back to, to that which is, eternal, is limitless. It's not bound by form and mortality and literally a body that as soon as you're born, you're dying, and everything decays. That's a natural part of the universe. It's about seeking to go beyond that. So the spirit is limitless. The spirit is back to free, and it's not bound by, like I said, these temporal mortal forms.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's really cool, and I'm glad that you were able to explain that in an eloquent way for anybody that's listening to try to understand. Because again, that which people don't understand, they automatically fear.
Look, it's a lot of people don't like to think of these things. They just want to think of their TV dinner and their TV show that's on, and try and forget about the rest of the world.
Yeah. So. Got anything to say? You've been quiet over there.
Yeah, well, it's basically, all him. I am a Satanist as far as since I was 16. The Satanic Bible, which he doesn't follow either, and I kind of
we
kind of clash. We kind of clash on things as far as but yeah, it's all to me. I got into Satanism. I read the Satanic Bible, and I was like, wow, it makes sense, because it's not even really into Satanism. It's more like humanism.
It's a life philosophy.
And yeah, it's basically, and that's.
Well, I can respect it as a life philosophy.
Into that.
Yeah. Like, everybody follows their own thing. For me, it's not my thing, but I've tried to gain understanding of it, and I respect it as its, as its own thing. And again, we have a lot of similarities in our different practices. We just kind of go about it in different ways, Even if you think about Buddhism, which seems like such a peaceful thing, it's, life is suffering. We need to escape this reality to get to the real.
There's a lot of connection between Buddhism and a lot of the tantric practices.
Yeah.
You can see a lot of connections with all of them. It's almost like they came from like a source, and they kind of little branched out in little directions. But I mean, that's really humanity as a whole, and life as a whole kind of started at one source and fractured off and went in different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, like I said, when the weirdest versions of the simulation that I heard, well, maybe not the weirdest one, but the one that made the most sense is like, okay, what if it's not a computer simulation, but what if the universe gained some form of consciousness and decided to just create things in order to experience everything that it could be, and that we're actually a creation of that. And so each person's life, whether it be suffering or good, is just the universe trying to, figure things out, so to speak. It's weird.
That's concept that goes back to a lot of things, where it's almost like that which is the universe or God, whatever, trying to get to know itself.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, a lot of those things make sense. I mean, like I said, I'm not so sure about the computer form of the.
Yeah, that's the one I can't get on board.
We're living in a computer. Well, then there must be something beyond the computer, and it's like, what are we in a giant Sims game?
Yeah, the Matrix. That's why. The Matrix was trying to open everybody's eyes so it's real. I'm like, well, I think it's more metaphorical.
It's metaphorical. The way I explain things to people, an analogy that I think works well from my viewpoint is, look at this universe. Creation is like a farmer's field, all right? And that farmer is God, all right? And in that field, he's growing corn, all right? And the stalk of corn would be something's individual, my body, your body, a cat, tree, star, all right? And then you have the husk, that inside is the corn kernel, all right? Well, that husk is the soul, all right? And then inside the soul is the spirit, all right? And that's like the corn kernel. So when we die, that spirit is released, and the universe or God feeds upon it to sort of like recycle it back into the universe to keep the universe going.
Yeah.
The idea is to liberate those individual portions of spirit from that cycle, of recreation. And by doing that, you'll actually end the cycle of creation.
Wow.
And it's the idea of then returning to, if you want to look at chaos as like an ocean, somebody goes down to the ocean and takes, like a glass, and that glass is your body, and you pour, you take some of the ocean out. That's your spirit. The idea is about returning that spirit back to the ocean and making, the ocean whole again, where that chaos will be. That will be all that is, and everything will be one within that. And people look at, oh, you're talking about nothingness. No, it's not nothingness. It's like no-thingness. It's not a defined, definitive thing. It's everything.
Yeah.
And it's all in its entirety.
It's a completely different level that's almost beyond comprehension.
Yeah, you can't actually, you can like conceive of it is what you might think it is, but it'll always be more than that. It's beyond human comprehension. People, oh, there'd be no consciousness. I'm not so sure of that. It would not be consciousness as any level we would understand it, but it's like it is beyond what we're able to literally perceive, which is why, especially when you get into spirituality, you break things down into smaller portions. I look at it as like facets or faces. You have the demonic, the left-hand path side. There's multiple aspects to it because it's too large to approach on the whole. So even though it is a larger whole, you're approaching facets or faces of it because you can then relate to that portion of it. And then you can make some sort of sense of it, and you can learn to work with it. But you have to remember, it's actually part of, like, you look at it like a black diamond, and it's got all these different facets to it. You're approaching it at different angles to get a better understanding of it on the whole, but you have to do that by perceiving individual portions of it.
Gotcha, yeah.
Because it's beyond human comprehension. I mean, it's something that's beyond us. You're never going to fully be able to understand it in the human form.
Yeah, and it always seems like throughout the generations with the creation of certain religions, some of the mainstream religions and whatnot, that like they've almost forced the closing of the third eye or whatever connection we have as mortal beings to
they want to put themselves between you and the only way to come to the divine is through us, and that makes man easier to control. It puts man out of touch with himself, his world. I think the only true way to have any connection with the divine, whichever side of the divine you want to have connection with, is through yourself. And man has lost connection with himself. He's lost connection with his world. We've become so connected to technology, which dumbs us down. He said it closes your third eye. Most people, they don't even know what a chakra is. They're like, I have what? I have them. They don't have any comprehension of these things. And most people don't want to now. They just want their iPhone and their fucking little game that's on it or some shit like that.
And I don't see why you can't have both.
You can have both.
We are still here. Like in our practice, it's like we know there's so much more than this. There's so much beyond this. But while we're here, enjoy what we have, but never lose your connection to what what's really out there.
I'm a very spiritual person, as you can tell, but me and him play video games. We talk all the time about did you get the new Last of Us 2? Play it. Just because you're into spiritual doesn't mean you totally need to leave. Everything of this world has no value to you. That's just depriving. We're here because we're here. At least have some fun with it.
Yeah, exactly. While we're here, enjoy it for what you can, learn what you want, live a life that you deem is the life that you're supposed to be living, and everything else kind of falls into place, but never lose that connection to to the everything,
Nobody can listen to Iron Maiden and not smile. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And then when it comes to like evil, light, dark, all that kind of stuff, the way we see it in our practice is there is no such thing as evil, there's no such thing as good. Everything is all natural. It's just how we perceive it as humans. Yes, if I go and I kill somebody else, that's evil. Yeah, that's that's where it starts to get a little tricky. It's like, I'm trying to tread.
What if that person was going to kill somebody you care about? Then it's what you did isn't evil. What you did is actually, I guess, good in your eyes.
Yeah, it becomes
perception.
a real tricky situation because, you know, things are going to happen the way that they're supposed to happen, whether we like it or not. You know, it's going to happen. And just like the metaphor that I made, you know, earlier, when, you know, people's houses burn down because of a forest fire, it's a horrible thing, and have to live in that mortal existence where all my mortal possessions are gone, but nature is taking its course and doing what it's supposed to do.
Nature
Am I
pays no
supposed to call
attention to
that
man.
exactly? Am I supposed to call that like, oh my God, that's an evil thing from the gods? No, nature is just working its course. We just so happen to get in the way of it, you know. And it's really hard to say that, and it's hard for some people to swallow that kind of thing. Like, oh no, that's, you know, this is evil, that's evil, you know, this is good. That's everything's just natural. It's just how you want to perceive it.
The man tends to think too much of himself. The man thinks it's like we're the crowning achievement of this universe. The universe does not give a shit about
Not
man.
at all.
We're like dust on a distant star, you know. I mean, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, a forest, like you said, a forest fire burns through a town. It's not paying attention to the people who are running out of its way. It doesn't even notice them.
Nope.
The hurricane that comes through and wipes your city away, it's just a force of nature. It's not paying any attention to you.
Exactly.
So, you know, good and evil. I mean, good and evil is a lot on perception.
Exactly.
You know, like if somebody breaks into your house and murders your wife, you're going to think that person's evil, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, it's... I happen to look at things like I believe that which created, or people refer to as God, I refer to as being evil. That is the first murder, was when God destroyed that limitless essence.
Bottled it up
and split it up and started, you know, making different forms out of it and forcing it into these forms and keeping it in a confined, you know, limited basis. That, you know, that's the first, you know, evil. That's the first criminal act. That's the first murder. And since then, you know, everything has been, you know, we've all been put in, all the essence has been put into these little, like I said, like little boxes.
Yeah.
You know, and you're kind of stuck. You know, but you're not. You can find a way.
Yeah.
You know, most people just don't want to open up their minds. They don't want to think about these things. They said they just want to come home and watch their
Kardashians.
Kardashians.
It always comes back to the Kardashians.
You know, their stupid, just the voice of fucking, you know, the Masked Singer or whatever this fucking stupid shit is they're dealing with now.
Yeah. So, all right. So, you know, again, thank you for, you know, elaborating on that stuff. I hope that anybody that's listening can, you know, get past their, you know, their individual perceptions to try to hear, you know, a different side. That's one problem we're really having with this country right now, is just because you don't agree with something doesn't mean that you can't hear it out and try to understand where it's coming from. Like nobody
can have a discussion with somebody they disagree with anymore. No. If everybody wants to live in a fucking
in a little bubble,
in a vacuum. They want to live in an echo chamber. You know, and it's whatever.
That, and if I can yell louder than you, I win the argument.
Yeah, exactly. Which is it's so far removed from like what actually creates change, what creates togetherness, and all that stuff. You know, it's just like, oh, we're just not gonna listen to the bad people. We're gonna hide them away, and that's gonna make everything good. Well, again, that's your perception of what's bad. What about what they think? So, like with anything that I come from, even especially if I don't understand it, I want to understand it before I make an opinion on it. And then through that, trying to find the understanding by talking to people, doing research or whatnot, even if I still don't agree with it, I can at least understand where it comes from, so I can find some kind of connection. So I'm not just boxing it out of ignorance.
And you get to learn more about yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have a discussion with somebody you disagree with, and you start thinking about that, you learn more about yourself, because, you know, that's why I disagree. That's why I feel different. You start to learn more about yourself. When you just talk to people who you agree with, you don't learn anything. You stay in one spot.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? I mean, you know, this cancel culture bullshit it's fucking retarded. I mean, they canceled Gone with the Wind because, oh my God, the movie's filmed on a plantation with the backdrop of slavery. That's the historical perspective. Nothing in that movie is pro-slavery. Nothing is saying this was a good thing or anything. And then you get to the end of the day, the actress, I don't remember her name, the black actress was the first black woman to win an Academy Award.
There you go.
Now you just removed that fucking movie, that history, from the first African-American woman to win an Academy Award. I mean, so what are you canceling?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like...
You don't have to promote it, but again, try to understand it. Why was this the way it is, you know? And from that understanding, then we can grow and move forward, you know?
And hey, history is a lesson learned from the past. But so many people are trying to change history now. You're just erasing the lessons you could learn from the past.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And it makes you wonder, why is that stuff going on? And it goes back to there might be, you know, some forces, again, working towards control, because the dumber people are, the easier they are to control. And
I
it's
totally
been like
agree.
That forever.
What's going on, in my opinion, is that you have these people in power who are doing all these nefarious behind-the-scenes things. And what they're doing is they're pitting, you know, black against white, Asian against black, you know, all these different people, you know, and trying to say, oh, you have problems, there's all this racism. And yeah, of course there is. There always has been. People hate things that are different to themselves. But they're making it out to be more because we're too busy worrying about that person instead of what they're fucking doing.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, and they're busy going, oh, you got a problem with that person, this person, and creating these little fires. So we're all running around going, oh shit, this is such a big problem. Meanwhile, they're fucking robbing us blind.
Yeah, and if somebody doesn't think that's by design, they're just ignorant. They're just ignorant.
Come on, we got fucking Nancy Pelosi with $24 gallon of fucking ice cream and $2 million fucking freezers. Who the fucking of us can afford that shit?
Yeah, but you get $1,400 because we already sent you $600. So.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, have you guys come across any kind of static, so to speak, you know, based off of, you know, the concept of what, you know, what's behind, you know, your art?
I don't pay much attention to the noise.
That's good.
I have, with the old lineup of the band, we had, somehow we ended up having problems with Antifa. And, you know, it was some of my friends from Texas like, dude, you made the Antifa's list over in, like, California. I'm like, what? You know, and then I was getting messages like, you guys are a racist band. I'm like, dude, the band is based on the Jewish mystery teachings. You know, we had, my drummer at the time was fucking Jewish. I'm like, how are we a fucking racist band? Have you bothered to look at all about what the band? There's nothing about race. Race and politics has to do with human, you know, human side of things. This band has nothing to do with that.
It's about pushing past humanity back to spirituality.
Yeah. And I just found it funny because they're sending me pictures of Hitler blown as a kill yourself with your glorious leader and all this stuff. I'm like, fuck are you talking about? Oh, we'll come out to your shows. And I was like, here's our next fucking 3 shows. I sent them, I said, come on, give me your names, I'll put you on the fucking guest list. Come out and say hello and introduce yourself. And if you want to resort to violence, we're more than welcome to resort to violence. I don't have a problem with it, you know, but just don't think you're going to come out and you're going to fucking walk away, you know. And the funny thing was, you know, bitched up, shut the fuck up, and went away.
There you go.
It was no, you know, I mean, I will give one guy, we were talking, we're going back and forth, and, you know, after a while, he goes, you know what? He goes, I'm going to apologize. You're not a racist, and I don't believe you guys are a racist band.
Wow.
I'm cool with you. And I was like, holy shit.
That goes a long way. You don't see that too often.
Yeah, I was just like, holy shit. I'm saying, dude, have you bothered to read any of the lyrics? Have you looked into the band at all? You know, and just...
And again, we fear that which we do not understand. There's this guy that's been around for a while. I've seen him in a couple other podcasts. I believe his name is Daryl Davis. He's an African-American piano player. He plays like blues rock and stuff like that. And from being a child and being, you know, first experiencing racism, his always thought was like, how can you hate me if you don't know me? So over the years, he's done this and that. The guy now has a museum, and in his museum, he has KKK robes, Nazi uniforms, and where does he have those from? Is finding these people, seeking them out, and having a conversation with them. It started with a grand wizard of the KKK, and I forget which state, and wound up setting up a meeting with the guy, sitting down, just talking to him, trying to understand where he's coming from. They became great friends.
And the guy left the KKK.
Exactly. And so, like, you know, and people are always on him. Oh, you're an Uncle Tom. You're this or that. And, like, you know, the dude is trying to find a middle ground. And through that, he's helped people see the error of their ways because they've never spoken with a black person before. So they, you know, again, they feared that which they did not understand. And after they got to know somebody, their conscience couldn't sit with them being like, oh, I want to kill these people. Like, this guy is my friend. I respect him. And, you know, something must be wrong wrong with what I'm thinking, just through having a conversation. And all these people have converted, and yet people are still attacking this guy for doing what he's doing. It's crazy.
I've always, you know what, I've never had a problem with somebody for the color of skin. I've always thought it's retarded. Two reasons. One, you don't judge somebody on the color of skin, you judge them on the color of their character.
Yeah,
I don't like humans on a whole. I'm not a very, you know, most humans are shit. You know, they're just stupid, simple-minded shit. All right? But to judge somebody solely because of their color of skin, I mean, well, your house is on fire. Would you rather have a white firefighter show up who's not going to do anything and the house is going to burn down, or a black firefighter show up and put your fire out?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, think. You know, stop, look past the colors. It's just retarded to me.
Yeah, it's very antiquated.
And the second thing that always kills me is you got people who are so proud that, you know, that they're white or they're this race or that race. You had nothing to fucking do with it. You didn't,
the genetic lottery.
You can be proud of your culture, but to be proud of, you know, like just like your skin color and you're better than somebody because racial superiority, yo, you did not decide what fucking cunt your father jumped, you know, shot his fucking load into. You had nothing to do with it. So shut the fuck up and go about your day.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And even with culture, it starts to get, like, you know, a little dicey there too. When you know, when this country was building up and immigrants were coming in to help build this country, you know, of course they brought their cultures with them and they kept their cultures to their home, but they came here because they wanted to be American. And now there's nothing wrong with celebrating our differences and remembering where your ancestry came from. But first things first, where can we find the common ground that makes us, you know, makes us neighbors, that makes us a community, you know? And everything else should be separate, but we're all, you know, there's been campaigns and celebrate your differences and celebrate your culture.
Well,
we have this day, that day.
We wonder why we can't get along, because everybody's so busy celebrating their differences.
Exactly.
You should remember your culture. You should remember your heritage.
100%.
That's important. But I laughed. I think it was Theodore Roosevelt that one of the Roosevelts said, you know, you shouldn't just be like an African American or an Irish American or a German American. You're an American.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're so busy, and these people exploit these differences to pit us against each other so they can feed their greed while we're too busy arguing over what part of the planet we come from before we were here. I mean, retarded to me.
Like, don't get me wrong, I like being Irish. You know, I have an Irish heritage on one side of my family. It's the only side that we actually have some family, so I have some understanding of it. You know, but at the end of the day, I'm second generation American. I was born in America. I'm an American. You know, so that just, it is what it is. It's the same thing. I don't see people by the color of their skin. It's content of the character, and you know, we're losing that more and more, and it's getting scary. But at least we have our own little worlds that we can take care of, and that's really all we can focus on.
Know, at the same time, as long as man's hating man, I'm happy.
There you go. Get back to the primordial.
It's just because man can just be so stupid. You know, you want to worry about that shit, you get what you deserve.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So now let's get into some of your guys' musical process, because you guys, again, you have a really awesome sound. So how does, like, you know, the writing process work for you guys?
Well, what we're working on now is a lot of stuff that I had before. But what was great was, like, with this new lineup, you know, like, Paul's a fantastic bassist, you know, our drummer is a great drummer, and I basically just brought in all the material to them, and we've been rewriting everything, you know.
Yeah.
I'll let Paul speak a bit here.
Well, there's really nothing to speak on right now, because it's all the older stuff, which is all written that, you know, we're rewriting and stuff, but it's all stuff that he's had for years.
Gotcha, yeah.
That, you know, I mean, we've only been together with the new lineup about a year now.
A little year and like 3 months.
You know,
even.
And just, we've been busy, man. During this whole pandemic, you know, when it shut down, we're doing home recordings, sending them back and forth to each other when we couldn't get together. And that's basically how all this is going.
One of the beautiful things about technology these days is that we are able to do that, you know?
That's the best thing about this lineup, is the old lineups would have, like, fallen apart, or we would have, like, you know, slowed down. Everybody in this lineup said, hey, what can we do to keep going? How can we take this, you know, somewhere, and, you know, use this time? And we all went out and got home recording equipment, you know, and the drummer spent a lot of time learning with mixing and EQing everything, and he records his drums, sends them to me, I put my guitar over top of it, I send it back to him, Paul puts his bass, you know, we all, you know, put our stuff in it, and we're building pre-production demos for everything for the split and the album we're working on.
Okay.
The material come from it's all stuff that you know, like I wrote. over the past few years. We had some demos with the old lineup, and presented them to everybody, and we're kind of like taking them and kind of reworking them a little bit, adjusting some things, changing a lot of drum beats and stuff like that. Now we're back to having 2 vocalists, which the band originally started with 2 vocalists.
I was going to ask you about that.
That's one of the main things that I wanted, was 2 vocalists.
And what's the thought behind that?
Not trying to copy any bands, but there's like a band called Funeral Mist, which is a vocalist from Marduk's other band, and there's vocals going all over the place, and different like crazy growls and screams and whispers, and I always wanted to do something where you could take that full-on vocal assault, but be able to do it live. Teloch Vovin has to be done live. You can't do the vocals. You can't do it justice with just one vocalist.
Yeah.
He's even going to be doing backup vocals, because there's so many layers. One of the songs, Treaties on the Left Emanation, that we have yet to get to with the new lineup, but the old lineup released it on a vinyl release with our friends in Grave Gnosis. There's 48 tracks of vocals on that song. Just vocals, 48 tracks of vocals.
Wow.
And it's always wanted to give this wide-eyed insanity, like turn the vocals into another instrument. And be able to have left and right and center and just come at you like an assault. It's literally the whole idea with the music in the band is to overwhelm your senses. It's an idea of to overwhelm your connection to the world and to sort of the body, and to invoke like a trance, but like a trance in movement. And that hypnotizing power to actually be able to to transcend the physical form, and through music, through the frequencies in the music, through the vocal attack. I want people, when they listen to it, to forget they're listening to a band, forget they're at a show seeing a band, and just be somewhere else.
Gotcha. Okay. I think next is hiring a choir.
We have tubular bells that we use in the band.
That's cool. Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. We'd like to get like a keyboard player or effects person.
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of different ideas we want to try out. It's just finding people that work.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I've always said it too. When like there's some bands that sound great in the studio, but they do so much like production work that just it doesn't transfer well live. And I especially hear that with the vocals and stuff like that, where you want to get that perfect vocal hit, but it's like when they're layering up the vocals, it's like you got one track going, and then immediately they multi-track the next line, and they kind of coincide, which it might sound great on an album, but you try to do that live, physically you can't do that.
which is why we have 2 vocalists, and we have backing vocals, because they're just coming from all over the place.
Yeah. And it's like I said, from what I've heard, you guys have a really, really awesome sound, a little bit of the old school stuff, but then with like this whole electronic feel to it, and it's just like you said, an assault on the senses. It's definitely very interesting.
Well, we're definitely more of a live band, I would say, than a studio. Like we add theatrics to it and stuff too. Like,
that was going to be the next thing I asked.
We don't want to be a typical band that just gets there and play. Like we want you to like see it, get lost in it, and really get the whole experience of it.
It's not like you're just going to watch a couple guys in jeans and t-shirts on a stage. And there is a lot of stuff that's done in like presentation side, the theatrical side of it was designed. I had the ideas in mind. They're for me. I want the audience, to like enjoy them. But like the wearing of the blood on the stage, that's for me. That's not for the audience. The incense that's used on the stage, that's for me. I hope it also translates to the audience. But it's all these things that are added into what we're doing to help me overwhelm my senses and myself, to forget myself while we're playing. And it's to make that connection with the divine.
Okay.
With the dark divine energies. Through the music.
Another thing you might want to check into on one of the last podcasts I did with this guy JD McGee. What's up? The hertz that is for recordings. Have you heard about this?
We play in 432nd hertz, not 440 hertz, for just that reason.
Gotcha. So you're already on top of it.
Already
Yeah.
on top of that. We've been doing that for a while.
What about like guitar tunings and stuff like that? Because everything is based off of the A string, which I forget which hertz it's tuned to.
440 is what's used now, but we tune to 432nd hertz.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You know, most of the songs are in E flat at 432nd, and then the one new long one, the Panzerfest, that's like 15 minutes long, is in B and 432nd.
There you go. Yeah, that's something a lot of people don't realize, you know, and that plays a big difference because at our core, you know, I probably talk about this ad nauseum, but like as atoms and as matter just kind of floating around creating this material world, everything vibrates at particular frequencies. So like, you know, all music is making vibrations and vibrating air creating sound. So the frequencies that we use really affect things very differently.
Yeah, 432nd hertz is said to work on the subconscious, and that's one of the reasons, you know, one of the ideas is to actually get people sucked into the spiritual aspect of it, where it starts working on them where they don't even know it. Yeah. And it also, again, like I said, a lot of it is for me, you know, is, you know, to work
getting into that ritual space
with doing it. And if you listen to a classical piece, you can hear it presented at 440 and 432nd hertz, and you can hear how it's so much fuller. It's got a different vibe when it's not, you know, changed to the way they've done modern tunings.
Yeah, and that's why, like, music in cultures, you know, going back, you know, as far as, you know, I forget what year they found, like, some of the first drums and stuff like that. Being in that ritual space, playing music, even in transcendental meditation, you know, doing ohms and hums. Dance, it's all about, you know, finding those frequencies, tuning into that, and, you know, relieving the consciousness,
opening yourself up to it. It's a way to open yourself up to it. You know, forgetting the physical world around you and open yourself up to something that's larger than you and beyond you.
Yeah, and the only people that can understand that, you know, there's people that love music and they get lost in it, but I don't think they understand it as much as musicians, artists, even, you know, guys that produce hip hop beats and stuff like that. When you're sitting in that studio and you're just working with the music, it's a little bit different. I can't remember which DJ was talking about that makes like EDM music, but how there's like, he felt like even though he was working with a computer, it was still connecting him to some like weird spiritual element within the computer when he was messing with different frequencies and different tunes and all that stuff. Like, it just got him into this space that like he never understood, you know, outside of anything other than making music. So as musicians, we get connected to that spiritual element in a much different way that I don't think a lot of other people can ever fully understand.
There's a big difference between, like, you know, the analog and digital side. Like, to give an example, when you use something and, you know, you're not playing a guitar, but you're using it and it's digitized, but it's like a guitar digitized, you're losing some of the frequency response, some of the sympathetic vibration. When I strike a chord on the guitar and it's being recorded analog, all right, you're getting all these sympathetic vibrations that the chord causes the rest of the guitar to vibrate. Yeah. All right. When you're just doing digital, you just get those three notes, and it doesn't have all the overtones and the vibrations of the instrument itself. And that's why I don't like, you know, like the digital. I mean, it works for certain electronic music. It can work for. But when you're talking about like rock and roll or metal or something like that, it's meant to be playing on a fucking instrument for a reason, you know, because you get those, you know, you get all those sympathetic vibrations and notes and overtones that come with it.
In the future, we might start to see that change. Like, technology has come so far that, like, now, like, amp simulation and stuff like that, and even like drum programs, they've come so far because now they do, you know, real proper impulse responses where, like, you know, let's say I want to recreate like this Fender that we have over there. They'll mic it with like 4 different mics, run it through an algorithm, and, like, you know, play just sounds at different frequencies to pick up the frequency response of what that speaker is actually capable of giving. And they can actually recreate everything almost to a T, you know, every frequency that can possibly come out of that speaker. It's still not perfect, you know, to the trained ear. Like, when you listen to something, it always sounds still a little almost too clean, no matter how much, you know, warmth they try to add to it. But yeah, we're getting there. It's you know, that's freaky, man. Because like, even like 5 years ago, some of the digital technology, even like, you know, the fractal audios, the Axe effects and stuff like that, those were the top of the line, you know, $5,000 like rack stuff, and it sounded almost too clean, you know, too compressed and digitized, you know. But
missing something.
Exactly.
But, you know, there's a lot of artists that don't get it, they don't think it, but there's some that do. You know, like you know what, Lady Gaga. All right, her Fame Monster album. She's got all this, dance music on it, and it's all digital. But there's one song on it that's a piano ballad, and you can tell it was recorded analog. You could just hear the difference, and that makes me respect her. I'm like, she knows what she's doing and why she's doing what she's doing. And instead of doing this song like all the other ones, she actually went and did this analog, and you can feel the warmth and richness of it.
Yeah.
Because it's what that actual piece of music called for. That I have respect for, when somebody, knows why they're doing what they're doing, and is really, trying to accomplish something.
Yeah. And one of the things that people don't realize, like what separates those kinds of sounds, is one of the things that you might not even recognize is when, like, especially like a piano, they're probably micing it up with a couple of condensers and whatnot, and you're getting just that, that 60 hertz or whatever that's just kind of floating through the air that also gets added to that, and that's what gives that warm effect, as opposed to just, digitizing it, over compressing it, and then it's just like a clean note, like you said, with missing all those in-between frequencies.
You're picking up the atmosphere of the room and the sound of the instrument moving through the air.
Yeah.
So you're picking up all those pitches and variations, and it just adds a fullness other than ding, 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 ding. If somebody just a digital, it just loses something.
Yeah, and they, like I said, they try to recreate it as best as possible, but it's still not there. And acoustics, you could have the same setup, play it in this room, then go to some place that's totally much bigger, different, with almost no soundproofing, with a little soundproofing, and that same setup is going to sound completely different depending on where you're at.
Playing a concrete room, and you're like,
yeah.
It's like,
great natural reverb, though. So, so you guys are working on recording the album. You got some old stuff that you bring back. Are you working on anything new together with the new lineup?
We have worked on, what we're doing right now is, we were supposed to be in the studio last Saturday, but our drummer ended up getting the coronavirus.
Oh, geez.
So that canceled everything for us. So we were going to do a track for a comp, which we're going to do that. That song's also going to be on the first album. We're finishing up the pre-production demos for a split CD with a friend of mine's band called Nascentium that we're going to do. That has a couple tracks that'll actually be on the album. Then it has a track that I wrote originally for an older band that I was in, that we changed the lyrics and the concept of the song, so we kind of made that our own. And then as a band, we took a song that I wrote for another band that me and Paul were in, a song called Panzerfest.
Okay.
That's 15 minutes long. It's in 4 parts.
That's awesome. You don't see people doing that too often anymore either, so that's awesome.
Paul will tell you, I got a 15-minute song, a 13-minute song.
He writes songs that go on forever. It's like,
yeah, there's few that do it anymore. Like this album by Periphery, their most recent one, they open up with like an 11-minute long song. I'm like, that's some balls right there.
But it doesn't feel like it's a 15-minute song when we play it. So it's like,
I had no idea when I wrote it. When I looked at its 15 minutes, I was like, holy fuck! I thought it was like 8 minutes long.
Yeah.
I don't think about the time. When a song's done and it tells me it's done, it's done. I have a 13-minute song, I have an 11-minute song, I have 3-minute songs. It's just when it says what it needs to say. I always say, I'm not writing this, something's writing through me.
Yeah,
I'm channeling something. That which is Teloch Vovin has chosen me to channel through me, and that's what I like to give you an example. We have a song called "The Dirge to the Death of Life, Love, and Hope." The beginning part of it was clearly, when I wrote it, I'm like, wow, that's inspired by Immolation. And I was like trying to sit down and write an Immolation style death metal song. I couldn't do anything with it. One day I just shut myself off. I picked up and I wrote, and it's like a complete like Black and Doom song. And it sounds nothing like where I was originally trying to go with the song. And it just worked because I just turned myself off and let it write itself.
That's cool. Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people have talked about this. Like, where do ideas come from? What is an idea? Is it like a collection of experiences, and then you try to put yourself in a mindset to like access that stuff, or ideas just kind of floating around? And just like you said, when you close yourself off, you become a beacon for those things. And because that's how I feel. Because I could sit there, grab my guitar, and I could play for every day for a week, and like nothing's coming to me. So I'm just practicing scales and practicing whatever I already have, and then just one day out of nowhere, all of a sudden something just comes and the more that I just tune into that, all of a sudden, bam, a new song's been born. But like, it doesn't feel like I wrote it. It feels like it came from somewhere else and channeled through me.
I'm just a channel, a conduit for this essence, which is Teloch Vovin. You know, the best thing, like with the new lineup, I can bring the guys anything. You know, and I sit down and, you know, me and Paul start going over the bass. You know, and it's great because there's no like egos in the band where, you know, like I could turn to Paul and give him an idea, and then he'll play something and say, hey, what do you do? You know, what do you think about this? And it's not like, well, that's my bass part. Don't tell me what to play. You know,
That's good.
You know,
That's good.
or Antonio, the drummer. You know, I mean, he's just the guy's like fucking human metronome.
That's awesome.
It's crazy. And
for your style of music, you need that.
And we you know, we can play anything, and we just try different ideas. You know, Christian, the lead guitar player, I mean, he's come in and added stuff. You know, I said, here, I'd like something from here to here in the song. He'll just bring something in, like, you know, he'll tell you, when we had A Dirge to the Death of Life and Love and Hope down, and the old lineup was always missing the second guitars, we didn't have one. Our new lineup, we got Christian in, and he just brought in this guitar part for the whole song, and we just went, holy fuck.
It's literally my favorite part in the song.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's what he wrote.
It's just like... well, you know, it's like, yeah, okay, that's it. You know, it just adds that extra something to it, you know, and then, you know, two vocalists, they don't have an easy time. I mean, he'll tell you the lyrics that I write and the amount of lyrics that I write, you know.
Pages.
I don't do verse, chorus. It's not that way. You know, the lyrics, there was a concept to it. You give it to the two of them, and they just make it work. And you know, it's crazy, but you know, I mean, they don't have an easy time.
Gotcha,
between the amount of vocals and the you know, going back and forth, and they just make it all work.
So you guys have a really good dynamic, it sounds like.
No,
That's absolute key to having, like, you know, a band work out, especially you guys are normally a 6-piece, right, currently?
Yeah, we're a 6-piece.
So yeah, that's a lot of guys. Maybe you're looking to add a 7th, you know?
I'd like to add a 7th person, you know, because I'd like the keyboards effects, and you know, we want to take the, you know, like the stage show further with strobe lights and samples in between songs. Like, you know, I don't like this, you know, works for some bands, but I don't like talking in between our songs. It's, you know,
You want to go in between. You're there to represent your spiritual beliefs, like we said, but in a theatrical way. So you're actually looking to put on a show. So, like, you know, it's definitely going to be a production, but that stuff is really cool. One thing you guys definitely got to check into is getting yourself in-ears, because with the samples and lights,
we're already talking about that.
everything to a click. There was a band from, I think they're from Massachusetts. I don't know if they're still around. They're called Replicire, and they're like, you know, just a straight, like, kind of like thrashy, like death metal kind of style. But they bring their own lighting rigs with strobes and stuff like that, and they got it running through a laptop, and everything's to a click that they're all. Well, I think only the drummer listens to it. Okay. But so they have certain samples and certain triggers for the lighting. So when they hit certain parts, the lighting goes right on. So it's really cool. But it's one hell of a.
We're looking at expanding all of that sort of stuff, you know, and you know, I mean. I've said to a lot of people, you know, Teloch Vovin, I almost look at it as like performance art. You know, I mean, it's more than just, you know, like you said, it's not, we want to suck you in and make you forget that you're watching a band on stage.
That's cool.
You know, I want you to walk out at the end of it going, whoa, where the fuck was I? You know, like, whoa, that was amazing, you know.
That's awesome. I can't wait till, you know, things open up and you guys are ready to go. I definitely want to check you out. You know, there's a couple of bands that, you know, get a little bit more theatrical, and some people call it hack and shit like that. And I'm like, I just don't understand.
It depends on how you do it. Some bands, you know, just they come across a little bit. I'm like, oh god, that's fucking cheesy, you know. And then there's other bands that you just like, whoa, that's fucking cool. You know, that's intense.
It depends on how well you can execute it.
It depends how you execute it, you know. I mean, you get a band like Lordy, and I'm like, oh god, just fucking goes out of here.
Yeah, but then you have like In This Moment that kind of falls right in between. They're very like goth, theatrical, and stuff like that. And some of it hits well, but then some of it's like, are you doing this because this is like your heart that's going into it, or is it this is what you think people want to see? And I think that intention behind it, you know, intention is everything, and people can pick up on that.
Look, I've always been, I'm a huge, so is a huge Iron Maiden show. Can you imagine to go see an Iron Maiden show and not see Eddie and not see, you know, and not see all of that, you know? I mean, I know it's not what I want to do with Teloch Vovin, but I want to do something in that, you know, I mean, that sort of vein where you're you're like, holy shit, look at that. It's not just the music. There's other stuff adding to it.
Yeah, it's a different level. You know, there are bands that I've seen that don't do like any, you know, production value in their live show, but they're still their presence on stage is still really cool. Like here's a guilty one. Remember the band Hoobastank? They were, you know, a hard rock band. When I first heard them, I was just like, oh, these guys really want to be Incubus. You know, I wasn't a big fan of them, but they happened to be at a music festival that I saw, and I'm still not a fan of their music, but their stage presence, they didn't have any special lighting or any stuff, but just the energy that they put into their show is like, I still don't like their music, but I respect them as musicians. They were on point. Like, I thought maybe they were way overproduced. They hit every single note. They were on point with everything, and they gave everything that they had to give in that, you know, in that performance. So like, you know, there's that side of it too. But then I've seen Iron Maiden. Oh my God, there's no show like it, man.
I remember quite a few years, over 10 years ago now. I was at Maryland Death Fest, and Uncle Ass and the Deadbeats were playing, and I always said, "That's a fucking stupid name," and I, you know, and I never gave them the chance. And I'm walking around, and it's a band playing, and I'm like, who the fuck is this? This band is awesome. And I said to somebody, yeah, who is this? Oh, it's Uncle Ass and the Deadbeats. And I just could not stop. I'm like, and I went out and bought them, and they're one of my favorite bands. And I was like, holy fuck. I don't, you know, I'm like, Uncle Ass and the Deadbeats, what? You know, and I'm looking at the guy on stage, and he's got like a wizard's robe on and a wizard's hat, and there's stars and shit on. And I'm like, me and my wife have gone and seen him like 3 times now, and, you know, they put these cat eyes on the drums. And before the set, we're like, what the, that's going to be stupid. And as soon as they played, we're like, oh, that actually makes sense. It just, you know, for some reason, any other band that did it would be, you know, it's like King Diamond. There's another one. Tell me what other artist could sing a line like, you know, we're going to repaint the front door soon. And you wouldn't be like, what the fuck? You know, Grandma, you know, the teapot. And all. I mean, King Diamond is the only person who can pull that off. And it does not sound like this is a fucking retard. This is stupid. Yeah. You know, it's just...
And again, it's that energy, it's that presence that he's giving with it as well. He believes fully in what he's singing, and he's giving you his heart and his soul while he's throwing it at you, even if it's a ridiculous line, you know. Gore is the same way, you know. They're absolutely ridiculous. Their stage show is insane, but it's like crazy. They're like, you know, pig faces and Speedos, but they're giving you everything that they got. And, you know, I don't think anybody could pull it off the way they do.
No, it's just, you can tell with certain artists, you know, when it's real. Then there's other artists where I've seen, and I'm like, you know, I saw Ghost live, and I was like, oh fuck, you know, with Iron Maiden, and I just, that's like Scooby-Doo doing Merciful Fate. I was like, you know, my wife's with me, she's like, the rest of the band looked like fucking gas station attendants in masks. You know, it was no point to them even being on stage. And the thing that killed me is the band's centered around the vocalist, and some of the songs, it's not a bad song, and then he started singing, and I was like, oh,
just not your style.
Shut this fucking dude up. Get the fuck off the stage.
Yeah.
Give me Iron Maiden already.
Yeah, exactly. And then another crazy band, I believe their name is Max the Hormone. They're like a Japanese grindcore band, and they're so intense, and like they'll be at their shows and they throw out like panties in the crowd. People are wearing them on their heads as they're like, you know, running through the pit and stuff like that. And they're absolutely ridiculous, but they're so intense. They're so like they're revved up, you know, to you know 5,000 at like every moment. It's like they're a really interesting band to see as well. So but yeah, so we're getting around to that time. So you know, again, real quick, if you guys want to put out where we can find you, you got
we got Facebook, we got Instagram, we'll have our YouTube page up running soon. We've got Bandcamp.
That's where people can find most of your music, right? It's up on Bandcamp.
Bandcamp, yeah, you can find a lot of our music on there. I should have probably brought with me all the sites, but I can't read them to you anyway.
Don't worry, we'll put them down in the description of the video, you know, and stuff like that. Who wants to sit
here and listen to me going www. You know, fuck you.
Yeah, but you know, the people might want to hear, man. I know. That's the other half of the industry is promotion. You know, it's like you want to just be an artist, just put your music out there. But then there's also, well, I want to put it out there. I want people to hear it. Now, how do you do that? And then there's the whole, you know.
We're going to be working on a split CD soon. We're working on the tracks for the first full length to get that. Me and the drummer, our old drummer Prof, are working on the 11th Psalm of Chaos, which is the black ritual ambient side. We're going to when we get that done, we're going to start shopping around to some labels, see if we can find a label that wants to put that out. If not, it'll all be digital.
And if anybody wants to try out for keyboards,
keyboards, effects, lighting and stuff like that, we're looking for that. And I guess the couple of things to say is right now we're April, was it 10th? Is it the 10th? We're filming. We already did one show stream. It's not live, but it's
pre-recorded. But
okay. And we're filming it at the same place we did the other one. It's going to be a band called Sick Bay. Is opening it up. Then we're going to be second, and then friends of mine, Malignancy, are going to be headlining it. This one's going to be better than the first one because we're actually recording the tracks individually, and the sound guy's going to mix it. So it'll be like DVD quality. A guy at the studio gave us the go-ahead to do the full stage show with all the candles, the blood.
That's cool.
He's like, I trust you guys. You're not going to make a mess. Do whatever you want to do. So we're going to do this. Going to have the full stage show. That's going to be probably sometime in May. That'll be streamed. Okay. We'll have more information when that's, but that's going to be the next show stream event. And then we're working on a video with a friend, Elena, a friend of mine. She's actually in Greece for the song "A Dirge to the Death of Life, Love, and Hope" right now. It's not a performance video. It's got images and stuff. We're not really in it, but hopefully that'll turn out really cool. So we're gonna have that.
All right, looking forward to it.
It's going to be coming out soon.
And then hopefully everything starts to open up and we start getting back to some live shows. Because again, I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys,
there's nothing
kicking ass.
There's nothing like, I don't know, you could say all you want, but playing live's better than sex.
Oh, it's definitely different. It's definitely different. What about getting a blowy wow performing? That would be something else, huh?
I don't know. I don't think the wife would be too happy with that.
I've seen that. What was it? Rob Zombie. Well, he wouldn't have, he wouldn't be doing it on stage, but he's got his wife there, stripping on stage. And I always wondered, what the point of that was, if that was for him or if that was for the crowd.
No, I want to bring somebody up on stage and everyone whip me while we play.
There you go. So, all right. Again, thank you guys so much for coming down. We'll have all the links to all your stuff down in the description, and we'll be seeing you soon. So, thanks for tuning in.